Okay, I'll go ahead and call to order the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation meeting today, Monday, November the 26th, 2018. It's 4:00 p.m. So could I ask Gary to give our invocation, please?
Glad to. Father God, we just thank you for this week in which many people turn to you to give thanks for the many blessings that you pour out. I thank you for the opportunity to serve on this board, and I thank for each of the board members and their concern for the city and the issues that come before it. I ask your blessings on each person in this room and for each person in the city and the staff and the county and their staff. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, at this time, we'll move on to the agenda, and item number 1 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. Any citizen with business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the Economic Improvement Corporation. No deliberation or action can be taken on these items because the Open Meetings Act requires an item be posted on an agenda 72 hours before the meeting. Visitors are asked to limit their presentation to 3 minutes. I have no cards up here, so any citizen like to speak? All right, if none, we will move on to item number 2, which is the approval of the minutes of the regular EIC meeting that was held on October 29th, 2018. You've received those via email as well. It is in your packet today. And I'll be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 29th.
Do you have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or changes to those items? All right, I hear none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, raise your right hand. And that carries unanimously. All right, item number 3, which are monthly reports, our monthly financial reports. Amy?
Good afternoon. This will be a fairly brief report today since we're just 1 month into our new fiscal year, but I wanted to share a few highlights. So if you look at page 8 in your packet, for the month of October, we received almost $285,000 in sales tax. That was up 2.6% compared to October of 2017. And because we did end up with fairly strong last couple of months of the year, when you look at where we ended up 2018 actual compared to 2019 budget on sales tax, we're only projecting a 0.6% increase. So we're okay starting out the year on our sales tax side. Interest income for the month, a little over $8,000. We're currently invested in Text Pool, and that's yielding about 2.4%. And we've talked about this some before, but just to note that is completely liquid and available to be used to fund projects at any time in that investment. Expenditures for the month were almost $108,000, and they just included the monthly transfers for debt service on River Trail and the sports complex, as well as the monthly transfer for the administrative services fee. So those were the only items there. A couple of things to note. On November 1st, so you'll see this in your November activity, we did transfer over $1 million for the first piece of the funding for Legion Lift Station. The way that agreement was written is that that first $1 million would be transferred by December 31st of this year, and then the second $1 million is by October 31st of 2019. So that second $1 million will be actually in fiscal year 2020 when that happens. Let's see, and turning to page 9 of your packet, just a few notes on projects. I did change a little bit of the project information here to focus on the projects currently in process and break things down, also looking at just the lump sum funding projects. In November, we also will be transferring money from the operating fund to the project fund for the Colette agreement, and that just means it'll be reserved in that project fund. It won't be paid, but it'll just be reserved there in that project fund. So those are the things that I wanted to point out. Any questions?
Questions?
That was a question I had about a Colette, because
Okay, great.
the project. Well, Gary's question as well.
other questions?
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you very
Amy.
much.
Thank you.
Item number 3B is our update on our projects. EA?
Yes, sir. I'm just going to go through these quickly because we actually have several of them that are pertinent to some agenda items that you have today. River Trail, just wanted to provide a reminder that we will be having the ribbon cutting for the expansion out to the Diedrich Center this Friday, so I hope that all of you can attend. That's a really beautiful section that's opening up. Reuse distribution lines, we provide a pretty extensive update on some of the damages that had occurred at your meeting last month. We are continuing to evaluate the reconstruction of that facility, and we'll be providing more information to you as we're able to develop that. Tennis center improvements, you do have an item later on your agenda, so I'm going to go ahead and hold on that one. Aquatics feasibility study also happening this Thursday evening at the Diedrich Center as well. We'll be holding a second in a series of town hall input meetings. So developed some feedback and some planning based off the feedback that we received from the public some months ago. And so I want to bring that back and get some additional input as we move forward. Downtown parking garage streetscapes, we'll be bringing that item to City Council, anticipating that in December. Hoping to come back to this group in the December or January timeframe. And then Legion Lift Station, we are seeking bids on that item. We've wrapped up the engineering on that, so hopefully we'll get good bids here over the next month and be ready to start some construction at the beginning of 2019.
Very
Happy
good.
to answer any questions you may have.
EA,
Yes, sir.
I probably should know this. What time is the ribbon cutting Friday?
Let's see, at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. Okay, good.
How long will it take to do the Legion lift station repairs or improvements?
Roughly a year, maybe a little over that. We'll see as we get into it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 3C, which is a report from Kerr Economic Development Corporation. Walt?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased that this will become part of the permanent agenda going forward into this fiscal year. The Economic Development Corporation's been very busy. We put forth as one of our main objectives, or primary objectives, for the fiscal year to building a new team of people. And I want to take this opportunity to introduce what I term an excellent COO. I use that term specifically, Gil Salinas.
Welcome, Gil.
Thanks, Walt, for that introduction. Mr. Chair, members of the board, again, my name is Gilberto Salinas. I'm originally from the Brownsville-Matamoros borderplex down in deep South Texas. Just a little bit of my professional background. I started in economic development back in 2006, right before the economic downturn. Though I didn't like it at the time, now looking back, I can truly appreciate that I started then because it really taught me how to come up with creative strategies and solutions as it pertained to recruiting companies when they were not interested in investing in certain parts of the region or expanding because they didn't have the funds or they were a little gun shy as far as proceeding with investments. But I like to say that that was kind of like the school of hard knocks, and that's part of who I am now. Part of that class of economic developers considered creative, entrepreneurial economic developers. Just a quick glance on what we're going to be working on in the first 4 to 6 months. And grabbing from the Kerrville 2050 Comprehensive Plan, we're in the process of drafting the first year roadmap to a competitive Kerrville, where the ultimate goal and objective is to build a proactive business environment and a project pipeline using the following mission as a guideline. And again, we're grabbing from the comprehensive plan, which is to import money into this community, into this region through smart and inclusive economic development. There's 4 strategies how we're going to be approaching this. The first is opening and maintaining the lines of communication, which we're already working on right now. That is maintaining communication with community leadership and community stakeholders, as well as the Office of the Governor. That was one of the first phone calls that we did when I got to the office, making sure that they knew who we were, what we were working on, because that's where leads come from. The next is the site selector network, getting in front of site selectors, making sure that they have our information and again know who we are, as well as C-level executives of Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies. The second strategy is conducting an assessment of the area. So this is for myself, because you already know this. an inventory of all assets, incentives, tools, plans of actions, what has worked in the past and what has not. And then myself, immersing myself into the community, meeting with you all, with stakeholders, in order to feel and to feel the fabric of this area and what is it that you all want and what is it that this community needs. Those are two very distinct things. And thirdly, updating and creating the new marketing community profile so we can begin promoting Kerrville through the proper channels and identifying key partnerships as it pertains to marketing. We are on the periphery of the Austin-San Antonio corridor. They're the ones that will open up doors. They're the ones that are on the radar of a lot of these companies. So it's to our benefit that we work with them so we can walk in through those doors when they open them. Number 4 is the prospect pipeline, developing a pipeline of prospects. And this is where the rubber meets the pavement, developing a program where we're proactively going after business and not waiting for it to happen. Again, this goes back to my School of Hard Knocks, making sure that we're knocking on doors. There's 4 components to this, to developing this pipeline. One is corporate recruitment, developing a lead generating engine internally. The other one is growth from within, so working a business retention expansion program for local industry. Then supply chain, getting with our local companies. Who are their suppliers? How can we get in front of them? And try to capture some of those suppliers to invest in this area. And then the other one is economic gardening, which is really the future of economic development. Partnering with Walt and the Chamber to create a program that fosters local entrepreneurship, because you never know when you're sitting on the next Michael Dell that might be working out of a dorm room in Schreiner University. And we all know that story. And that's how you start really having success and growing roots in the community and developing a cluster from scratch. However, and most importantly, none of this will be met if I don't hear directly from you all. The leadership, community leadership, and community stakeholders. And I've already had some of these meetings, and I'm taking the next 3 months to meet with as many people as I can. So again, I mean, I don't want to be in a position where I'm out there knocking on doors and then I think, Don, we were having this conversation last week, and then somebody pulls me back. It's like, well, who told you to go knock on their door? Hence, that's why the next 3 months is vital to the development of this plan. Any questions?
Questions, anyone? Sure.
Bill, I would like to welcome you aboard. I know we did that corporately, but personally. I had the opportunity to visit with Gil and his wife. They're both graduates of the University of Texas, so you can either hold that against them or whatever. Yeah, whatever. I'm from Oklahoma, so at least I didn't throw anything from me. But and his wife is an educator, and if she doesn't have a job yet, if anybody's looking for somebody that's very outgoing and capable, interim or whatever, I don't know. She's a good gal. Thanks.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard, bud.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Gil.
Okay.
Look
Anything
forward to
else?
Visiting more with you.
Thank you, Gil.
Yeah, I think we see we're in really good hands. We have a great partner here. It's a great progress step, and today, or as of Gil's beginning, we can start being proactive versus reactive in the economic development spaces, which is where we really want to be. So I'm very happy, and I want to also welcome Gil on behalf of the Economic Development Corporation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walt. All right, moving on to item number 4, which is 4A, a public hearing and possible action. I will open the public hearing at 4:14, and let me read you this caption. The public hearing is for an economic development grant agreement between Thompson Drive Partners, LLC, and the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation and the City of Kerrville, Texas. Do we have a presenter today?
We've got a brief staff presentation. I know the applicant also has a presentation, so if
Great.
you'd like to go into those now, and then you can
Sure.
have any visitors open up.
Sure.
Sure. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of re-highlight the basic tenets of the project as well as the economic development grant agreement. The project summary, again, is approximately 60 acres. It is a mixed-use phase development now located within the city limits along Thompson Road, kind of on that far western portion of Thompson Road, headed towards the 98 bridge. It's roughly 1.85 million in offsite infrastructure that is being anticipated. That includes sewer force main, gravity mains, lift stations, and water mains. The project was conceptually identified in the city's 2012 wastewater master plan, and then a piece of it, obviously, in the 2013 water master plan. For a number of reasons, including project funding, it just was not able to be incorporated within the ability for the city to take on over the last 6 years. So the request from the developer of the property to the EIC is for $850,000 of that $1.85 million in offsite infrastructure costs. The property is located here. You can see the 98 area, the water treatment plant kind of in the far bottom right corner. You can see the Guadalupe River. The area in red is the 60 acres. The blue and the green are the existing water and wastewater infrastructure. As you can see, the vast majority of it is on the north side of the Guadalupe River. There is a small portion there extending from the water treatment plant. You can kind of see the dam, the Nimitz Lake Dam, right there, kind of in that bottom corner. This is the zoning with the annexation of that property here in recent months. That was extended on the W7 zone. The portion to the southeast was zoned W7 previously, so it's just an extension of that. I'll let the applicant get into it more, but there may be PDD, plan development zoning requests potentially in the future. This is just an excerpt from the Kerrville 2050 planning process. As you can see, Catalyst Area 3 was this general area south, kind of southwest of the Guadalupe River, generally sandwiched in between there and that Highway 98 area, identified by the community as a catalyst area. And this is just kind of a little bit of a zoom in. You can see there is some existing floodplain. Again, the applicant can probably speak to this more, but I believe they do have some remediation elements that they anticipate along that border with the Guadalupe River. Pretty extensive history here. As we've talked about before, with this group, the applicant originally made EIC application in the August 2017 timeframe. Extensive amount of negotiation with the EIC on various deal points throughout the fall, winter, and part of the spring timeframe. Eventually, the EIC did set a public hearing date in the April timeframe. A public hearing was held at that time for the economic development agreement that was drafted. The applicant asked that a pause be made during that period to go ahead and complete the annexation process that ensued over the summer as well as the fall timeframe. That annexation was completed in October and based off of discussions of the economic development agreement with the EIC in executive session here over the last couple of meetings, went ahead and finalized those deal points and have brought that forward to you tonight. Just a brief summary, essentially the developer will annex and zone the property into the city limits, which has been completed. They will engineer and install that $1.85 million in offsite water and wastewater infrastructure that will be dedicated over to the city and maintained by the city. There will be provision for river trail easements and park dedication, as well as a trailhead within the property. A traffic impact analysis will be conducted. They'll be mainly working with TxDOT, since that is a TxDOT facility that they front onto directly. The EIC will provide $850,000 to the developer in 3 equal installments. One installment at the annexation zoning, which again has occurred. However, there will need to be a letting of the actual construction project. An additional installment at the completion of the infrastructure installation and commitment of the work on the development of phase 1, which is a portion of the multifamily, 120 units of the multifamily complex. And then the third and final installment at completion of phase 1, which is again that multifamily piece, and then actual C of O being issued. There are clawbacks initiated within there if for some reason that the development didn't begin within a 2-year time span, or that phase 1 portion was not completed within a 5-year time span. There's also the provision of a phased reservation of the utility capacity. So essentially, once it's dedicated over to the city, 100% of that utility is out there. The developer has 80% of that capacity that's reserved for their development from year 1 to year 5. As an incentive to accelerate the development, that reservation of capacity decreases over time. So from year 6 to year 10, only 40% is actually reserved for the developer if that wasn't being utilized by the developer. And then at year 10, if for whatever reason that capacity had not been utilized, the city would be able to provide that to capacity to whatever development within the area, okay, in its entirety. Be happy to answer your questions you may have. Again, the applicant is here to also answer
And
questions.
the applicant will follow your presentation.
Yes, sir.
So these questions would be just for city staff. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Comment on the upsizing aspect in the 380?
That's still in negotiation with the
Gotcha.
city component to it, but there are various elements of the upsizing. In particular, there's various degrees of upsizing that could occur, and we're still working through that. One of the most critical elements is essentially doing the boring. There's a significant amount of topography from the Francisco Limos Bridge over to kind of up and over several hills. And so we think it's beneficial to go ahead and provide maximum boring size now rather than putting in an undersized pipe. So we're going to encase it for bigger size pipe than what may be initially needed at this time. In addition, the casing for the gravity main, essentially from the top of where the state hospital is, the far western boundary of where the state hospital is, down to Francisco Limos, we think it's beneficial to go ahead and put in a 12-inch sewer main at this point, gravity main at this point, because you can go ahead and put a bigger than what you need because it's a gravity main as opposed to a force main.
I wanted to get you to mention that because I think this is a very exciting opportunity to have additional growth out there.
Yes, sir.
And the upsizing would be important to that.
That's right.
And so as part of this negotiation, we did that.
That's right.
And I think that's excellent. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
It will help provide for regional service in the future in that area. It won't fully provide every lot across all of Spur 98 certainly, but this certainly paves the way for that to become much easier in the future.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, since this started about over a year ago, has the cost, do we think this 1.85 million will be adequate, or do you?
I think the applicant can best answer that question,
Okay.
but yes, sir, I do believe we are seeing price escalation on a number of construction fronts.
Didn't it start out at $1.5 million and now it's higher than that?
No.
I think it was at 185. I think the applicants actually, again, I'll let them speak to it, but I think they're anticipating costs of around at a minimum 195 now.
Oh, okay. And we're still capped with this
Yes.
at 850.
Okay.
Questions? All right. Mr. McDonald?
Good evening, afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name's Justin MacDonald, 2956 Dry Hollow, and I'm here on behalf of the developer. I just wanted to go through a brief overview of what we're planning to do on the site. There's been a lot of questions and a little bit of innuendo here and there, and so I just wanted to kind of go from square one and show y'all what's really going on. Apologies to Ms. Siegerman, who's seen this at council, but I felt it important to show it again to this group.
I'm gonna buy a home in there, I think, so I'm looking forward to the landing.
So just a summary, as EA mentioned, it's a 60-acre mixed-use development planned along the banks of Nimitz Lake. Our current planned uses include luxury apartments, townhomes, office and commercial space, restaurants, bars, possibly entertainment venues, craft artisans, and boutique retail. This is going to be a very Kerrville-centric development. This is not big box stores. This is not your run-of-the-mill chains. This is going to be something that will be part of this community and makes this community proud. I'm from here. I grew up here, and I plan on staying here and going back in the ground here. And so I want this to be something I can be proud of for a long time to come. So, and this, I apologize, this is so small, but this is just a rough outline of our current preliminary plat. We are going to be working on changing a few of these items as we negotiate further with some of the neighboring property owners to ensure that they've got access to their properties. but that's what was last presented to the city prior to our annexation. This is just a colorized version of essentially the same thing. This is our concept plan, and I'll go through kind of each piece of this puzzle in a little bit more detail, but that is the overall kind of master view. So as EA mentioned, our first phase is going to be multifamily luxury apartments. This is an example, and you can see the location there on the screen. This is a property we recently built in Fredericksburg, and we feel like Kerrville is ready for something like this as well. So it will be upscale Class A luxury apartments, which should help meet the kind of middle echelon of housing need within the city. Then we also have a townhome phase planned for that corner there that's lit up in red. This also is a property that we recently developed in Fredericksburg, and we think will do well here also. It'll be a little bit more upscale than what's in Fredericksburg. We'll probably allow for the home buyers to customize some options and do some different things to sort of make it their own. And those will be for sale in all likelihood. It's really hard to say at this point. I don't know, we kind of discussed it. What did we say before? About $200 a square foot, more or less. And I'd say plus or minus $25 a foot there. So
How many townhomes would you think you could get on their property?
we're really not sure yet. We're still working with the engineers. It's going to be based on the trees and the topography. We recently had a tree survey conducted, and we're going to be working as hard as we can to save any heritage trees. There are a few on that townhome site, so we're going to have to be working around that. We think probably somewhere between 30 to 48 townhomes, somewhere in there. Next, we also plan to do office and commercial space on the two highlighted green sections there, including the one that would be on your left, at the top left of the screen, will actually be our new company headquarters. So we'll be moving about 20 employees to that location that are currently not in the city of Kerrville. So we're really excited about that. And I'm personally pretty excited about having a river view out my office window. So that's what those two tracks are. And then there's a third one that's currently identified as commercial, but will probably end up being reserved out for access for some of our neighbors. And this is just a photo of another office here in town that we want to kind of pattern the look after in order to fit in as much as possible with the hill country look. Restaurants along the river's edge. We want to be sure and have restaurants similar to the one in the picture there that are oriented towards the river. We feel like it's going to be a great, pretty view there. You're going to have the sun setting at your back, so you'll have a great view of the river without blinding glare in the evenings. And we think this is a real opportunity for something in Kerrville that really emphasizes the river rather than turning its back on it. That's been a problem we've had in this community for a long time, and we're excited to have something to turn that tide. Then we also have craft artisans. Think Round Top, think some of the antique houses and buildings. We're not 100% finalized on what we're going to be doing with this, but we know that we want it to be small, we want it to be boutique. Think of hat makers, boot makers, potentially a craft brewery or distillery, something along those lines with a lot of character and charm that might draw people to the area. And then finally, we also will be doing an expansion of the river trail. We're working with the city to do that in the floodplain area that's shown there closest to the river. As EA mentioned, we will be reclaiming some floodplain, but a lot of it we plan on using for open space and green space, either for our owners and occupants of our development or for the general public. So part of this includes that river trail. As he mentioned, it'll also include a 1.5 acre dedication of a park area for use as general recreation and as for a trailhead for the river trail at some point. And then just a little bit about us. I think y'all probably know us already, but we're based in Kerr County. I live here in the city, as does much of our employee base, but we work outside the city currently. So we're looking forward to moving in. We are a third generation family business, and we are owners and operators. We don't speculate and pump and dump or build and flip or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, we're moving our company headquarters to this development as well, so we intend to do a good job that we're going to be proud of, because we're going to be right in the middle of it every day. We currently own and manage more than 3,500 apartment units throughout Texas, including 1,200 within the Hill Country area, being in Kerr County or in its contiguous counties. And we have more than 130 employees, including 30 within Kerrville and Kerr County, 20 of whom will be located at this development after the office is built out. And if you want any more background information or photos of our prior projects, you can see it there at our website. And that's all I've got, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. McDonald?
What's the timeline, or have you contacted any potential restaurants, companies, or what's your timeline for further development other than the initial housing project?
We've had a preliminary contact with a few possible buyers or tenants on those properties. Nothing firm yet. Frankly, we wanted to get through the annexation process and then get through the EIC process and be under construction with the utilities before we were in serious negotiations with somebody to come into the project other than ourselves. So assuming that we go forward tonight and then we start construction pretty soon, at that point I think we'll probably open it up to the world and kind of go public, if you will, to solicit those potential buyers and tenants.
Thank you.
Other questions?
It's exciting. I'm really excited to see it come forward and land.
Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment. I think I'm new to the board and relatively new as a full-time resident, but having been involved a little in the 2050, that I'm just very impressed with how you are building a community.
Thank
You're
you.
not really building just housing, you're building a community, and not only that, you're inviting the larger community into your space, and that's really nice.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We really want this to be a destination for all of Kerrville residents and a draw for folks to come in, not just for the folks that live within the landing, but for the entire community at large, and even for tourists outside the community to come in and enjoy.
Any others?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to the portion of the public hearing where the audience gets to participate. And I do have two speaker request forms in front of me. James Kraft.
Good evening, everyone. I'm James Kraft, or good afternoon, whichever it might be. 2783 Ben Hare Highway. I've lived in Kerrville for 67 years, I guess. I just had a couple of questions, and this probably would be for the developer more than the city, but either one might be able to do it. And I did notice that in the agenda item that the 2012 master plan had this incorporated into it, and I'm just, and one of the items indicated in the agenda bill that, because of funding and whatnot, that was not accomplished, and I'm just was curious to, why the funding wasn't available, and B, if apparently there had to be engineering plans and studies and that were made and done at that time for the extension of the wastewater and the water out to the area. And I'm just curious if the developer is actually following those plans, maybe not to the T, but at least to where it coincides with what the city had the engineering do originally. So that would be a question for probably, I'm thinking the developer, perhaps, city.
Certainly can answer any questions that the EIC may have.
Okay, so that's pretty much the only questions that I had on that one. I just wanted to make sure that whatever the city was going to be taking over after it was constructed is actually adheres to what the city had planned for 6 years ago, at the minimum, if not better than what had been planned for, so
Okay.
that's pretty much it.
Jim, as part of, can I address this?
Sure.
Okay. As part of the negotiation, what gets built there has to be built to city standards. And I had a discussion with EA about this being in the plans for the city water back before when we were in the negotiation process. And he assured me that this was in the water plan, but it was conceptual. So I don't think they've done any real engineering on it yet, but I know that in our agreement with the developers, it has to meet city standards. We don't fund it until it does. So is that answering your question?
I understand that. I'm just
Okay.
curious. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that there had to be
Okay.
engineering studies that were done to come up with a master plan, and was just curious if the developer is following or have been privy to those engineering
Don't
plans
know.
and studies
I
from
have no idea.
2012.
I have
so.
no idea.
Anyway, a thought, maybe a suggestion that if they haven't been, that maybe they could be referred to that, so. All right, thanks.
Thank you. And we have another from Justin McDonald.
Well, that was really just to ensure that I had a placeholder in line to speak.
Okay.
I can address Mr. Kraft's question, though. I don't know anything about the funding or the prior master plan, but I do know that our engineers have been in contact with the city's Public Works Department and Engineering Department in the design phase, and have been making sure that the design does meet the city standards and comports at least as much as is possible with the master plan.
Okay. Any other speakers? Walt?
Yeah, I'd like to just say something briefly on behalf of the Kerrville Area Chamber of Commerce. We were very involved, as you all know, in the development of the Kerrville 2050 plan, particularly the economic development section. And I'm really pleased with this design, as a number of you have indicated. It ticks a lot of the boxes on the comprehensive plan, takes advantage of the river, enhances our housing options, gives options to local retail. And as such, we're very supportive of this plan and encourage its adoption. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any others? All right, at this time, that closes the public hearing. It is 4:37, and I will open the floor up for discussion from EIC members. I hear no discussion. Then I will call for a motion and a second, and then a vote on the funding agreement that is in front of you.
I'd make a motion that we approve funding agreement as in accordance with the contract that we have here and have negotiated pretty thoroughly. So I would make that motion. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If none, may I see a sign of your approval with the raising of your right hand? All right, and those that oppose? So that is a 6-1 vote, and that motion carries. Thank you very much for your time. And I know this was a long, arduous process, and our hopes are that there, for the rest of everyone that brings one to us, it doesn't take quite this long to get through the process, but I completely understand where we are. Thank you very much for your efforts and for participating.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 5, which is 5A, a presentation regarding a funding request for the expansion of the river trail to Schreiner University.
Good afternoon again. I want to just briefly introduce this item. I know we've got some speakers from Schreiner and elsewhere that also want to speak to this, so I just want to quickly run through just a kind of overall summary. We did receive an application several months ago, and Walt with the Chamber has been working with the applicant on finalizing the application. We did brief the EIC in executive session at the last meeting. You all directed us to go ahead and bring this forward for a public presentation, so here we are tonight. Essentially, this is a funding request for approximately just a little over a mile of river trail expansion, and actually an extension from the main trail there, kind of coming across G Street, and then the north side of the Guadalupe River over to the main Shriner campus. I'll let them speak to more of the amenity nature of this and helping them grow campus enrollment and marketing Shriner, but obviously a huge asset to the community and an economic engine for us, as identified in the Kerrville 20 comprehensive plan, so much so that this was identified as an action item within that comprehensive plan, so we're happy to bring it forward to you tonight. This is also part of a connection to adjacent neighborhoods and area businesses, and would provide, conceptually, from our discussions with Shriner, would provide trailhead and shared parking arrangement on that kind of central eastern portion of the trail, which we don't really have at this time, kind of on that far boundary of the downtown, Kerrville downtown area. The request is for $1.5 million, and we anticipate that would be a three-way agreement, similar to what we've done in the past on other pieces of infrastructure between the EIC as a funding mechanism, Shriner University and the improvements that they're doing on their campus, and then the city as the construction entity, essentially. So just real quickly, again, this is kind of an overall of the existing river trail as it kind of stretches and winds along the beautiful Guadalupe River. Did want to bring your attention, let's see, there we go. A little bit hard to read here, but essentially we did bring a recent trail master plan effort that we've gone through the Parks Board and then got that approved, and also went to City Council in the October timeframe. And these aren't in any numbered order per se, but looking at potential expansions around Nimitz Lake, potential expansions down the south part of the Guadalupe River on the north side of the Guadalupe River, but southern direction down to Kerrville Shriner Park, extensions to Shriner University, potential extensions up to the sports complex. So a lot of good future expansion efforts. And again, as we updated you for, excited to be wrapping up with the expansion effort up to the Dietert Center on the northwest side here this month.
How many miles would that be if you were all continuous?
Actually, what are we up to now? Right at 5.
We're at 5 today.
Yes, sir. Correct.
If
5
you do
today.
the rest of all what you have here in red, it's another.
I don't know if we've got the full, how many, about 15 total miles as it's conceptually derived right now.
Okay, it looks like more than that.
Conceptually. Again, Kerrville 2050, this does check one of the boxes within the expansions of parks and the guiding principles that you all provided to us on really focusing on our existing facilities rather than necessarily reaching out and grabbing new parkland that may be out there, and does absolutely check that box on creating a pedestrian and bike connection from Shriner University to the river trail. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have, but I know you've got a lot of speakers tonight, so I want to get away from the podium.
Questions?
Not right now.
Have we looked at any other routes? You know, there's been some discussion about a light there at the campus. Have we looked at making a route to that way as opposed to inside, under the bridge, under the Quinlan Street Bridge? How far is that difference?
Yes, sir. Typically, on a trail, the primary use of the trail is for pedestrians and for bicyclists, and so it becomes very difficult, particularly when you're trying to cross over a multi-lane highway surface. It really, the emphasis there is.
You need a light. You need some kind of intersection.
Even with a lighted intersection, it's very difficult for trail users to cross there. And so in walking through that area, you know, we felt like the most safe route for pedestrians, you know, there's no other area along the trails that really gets even up onto a roadway or goes through an intersection. So we felt like the most safe route for pedestrians and cyclists going to the campus was going along that northern boundary, crossing G Street, along that northern boundary of the Guadalupe River, and then crossing under that existing bridge structure there.
Creek, yeah.
That's correct. And then kind of wrapping around the cemetery, and then a much smaller bridge can be utilized to cross Quinlan Creek near where it's ideal on the campus and for the neighborhood area, which would be at that pavilion area, which provides
Go
a
back
better.
to your drawing. You show
Yes,
that
Pull it back up here.
the bridge would, the river trail would continue towards 534.
It could at some
Ultimately,
point in the future, yes, sir.
along Yeah.
Yes, sir. That bridge crossing there across
The red
that
line.
portion of Quinlan Creek is a different category of bridge, much more expensive. I think our estimates were about 1.5 million for just that bridge alone, as opposed to a much smaller bridge structure, which is necessary, kind of wrapped around on the sort of north side of the cemetery area.
Yeah, the trail as we have it today is basically on the south side of the river, most of it.
Until you get to the
Until you get
Dieter
across
Nature
Up
Center.
there by the nature center,
Yes.
and then you cross over.
That's
But
correct.
ultimately, we'd be on both sides of the river as this thing is drawn,
Yes, sir.
and connecting all the way around, so you could actually make a full circle almost.
Really, kind of two full circles. You'd have a circle area around Nimitz Lake, and then potentially kind of a circle area going down to 534 and Kerrville Shriner Park, and then back up that south side. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So kind of a figure eight, if you will, sort of with a stretch in the middle.
Yeah, I know that Shriner University is providing a portion of the easements for this.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how much of this is not being provided, is going to have to be acquired by the city by way of either deed or easement? Who the owners are and what the price is that's going to be? Have any ideas on that?
We have not engaged yet at this point. We wanted to come to EIC and gauge what the appetite for this project was. But certainly, it's a shorter stretch. The vast majority of the right-of-way and easement needs are owned by Shriner University at this time.
Well, I mean, because I think it's important to know exactly what the cost of this is. I know what they're asking for. I know
Yes, sir.
quite a bit on this,
Mhm.
and I like Don's comment about other routes, because you and I have had discussions on that.
Yes, sir. We do have a small portion that's allocated for easement acquisition. We're keeping that kind of close to the chest because we don't want to
I fully
reduce our
understand.
negotiating
I fully
position.
understand.
Yes, sir.
My question is more to the public
Mhm.
looking at this, what is the overall cost? And I think that would be an important
Yes, sir.
aspect of it.
We
And-
anticipate hopefully the overall cost, if we were able to launch off on the project in the near term, again, we are seeing rising escalations in construction costs, is at 1.5 million.
Because we know in the 2050 plan, just because it's an action item, doesn't mean that it's particularly been approved, certainly not funded.
Yes, sir, that's right.
And another aspect of this is, can you comment on the, if you can, anyway, discussions you've had with Shriner University relative to public access to the parking and trailhead area?
Yes, sir. I'll let them speak to it, but
Okay, I didn't know
my
if
understanding,
someone was here. Okay.
yes, sir, they have been very amenable in our conversations. They're really trying to engage the public and bring the public on campus as much as possible. There is an existing gated element along Park Street, but essentially there would be an agreement with that would be become a public easement along there over to where the trailhead is accessible.
Yeah. In that regard, for general interest, if you haven't been there on Sunday for lunch at Shriner University, it's the best $9 you're gonna spend.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any day, really, not just
Well,
Sunday.
No, well, I mean, but that Sunday's a good day.
Yes,
so
sir.
whatever.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Hey, let me ask, how late can someone be on the river trail? The city has is it 10 or just
Yeah, it's right
Just
at dark.
anytime at dark?
It's dark, yes, sir. It's an unlit trail, and the reason it is unlit is because we have the vast majority of it is within a floodplain area that has, potential water elements, and so most of the trail is not electrified. So it's really daylight hours.
And this project were to be completed, the public would be allowed on campus up till dark, anytime? Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Yeah, who is going to be presenting for the university? All right.
My name is Charlie McCormick, 400 Inglewood Drive, and president of Shriner University. Thanks so
Welcome.
much for letting us come
Thank you.
and share this this vision for the River Trail extension. A lot of the things that we were going to talk about have already been mentioned, so we won't belabor these points. This was first articulated in the 2050 plan, and Shriner was actually working on a strategic planning process at the same time that the city was working on its 2050 plan. Ours is a 5-year plan, and so we wanted to achieve alignment where appropriate with the city's plan, and so we included connection to the river trail in our strategic plan as well. Like the 2050 plan, we had not articulated an exact timeline for that to happen. But this fall, in conversation with the community that surrounds Shriner and some business owners there close to us, we decided that as people think about where the next extension of the river trail will be and should be, that we wanted to make sure this was under consideration, and so we're delighted to do that today. We think there are all sorts of good reasons for bringing the river trail out to Shriner. It's important for the community development, for Shriner's neighbors, give them easy access and walkable access to all the benefits that the trail offers, both health-related as well as access to retail, entertainment, food, dining, those sorts of things. As EA mentioned, it's absolutely part of our strategic plan to exercise fidelity to Captain Shriner's vision of a hill country university. And so that's part of our intention here, is to make sure that what we consider our Shriner University is your Shriner University as well. So for all those community development reasons, we think it's important. We also think this is very important for our own recruitment and retention plans at the university. So our plans call to continue to build on the growth of Shriner that we've seen over the last really 5 to 6 years. We intend to just about double the size of Shriner University in the next 5 years, and we think that access to the river trail is something that our prospective students will find very appealing, where whether they have a car or not, they can access the downtown area and East Water Street and Clay Street, and now I know the Landing as well. We think that this is also a very good opportunity to encourage our faculty and staff to live here in Kerrville and in fact make their home around the university. One of the most challenging things we have at the university right now is to make sure our faculty and staff live here in Kerrville and not in Bernie or someplace like that. And so we think that this is a good incentive to encourage them to do that. Why does all of that matter for the EIC? Well, we think that, and in fact we have evidence to support that, a strong Shriner University equates to a strong Kerrville as well. In the proposal, you have some of our projections in there, but in terms of the economic impact, you can see that 2 years ago we contracted out an independent evaluator to do an economic impact study for us. This was a very conservative study, estimated that at our population 2 years ago, we had about a $63 million per year impact on the Kerrville area. And that averaged to about $55,000 per student. You can see our growth projections and the economic impact that those we've modeled out for those growth projections there. EA's gone through where this goes, so I won't belabor that point. I will note that 1.5 million is what we've been told this trail will cost. I think in a sort of unprecedented move that I'm aware of, Shriner is offering to provide funding of up to $50,000 to help support this trail as well. And of course, we'll provide permanent easements as specified in that project plan. To complement and correspond to the trail, we're going to develop a campus perimeter trail system. And as we've indicated to the EIC, we will time that so that that's completed at the same time that the river trail extension is completed. If you've been on campus, you've probably seen that there are people who walk around what we call Acorn Loop. That's the vehicular loop around campus. People also drive on that loop. And so both for our students as well as the neighborhoods that use that, we want to have a safer perimeter trail system, and so that will be part of our investment. As EA's already noted, we will do 365 days a year pedestrian access and vehicular access as well. It's our intention in the future to continue to build amenities. Restrooms will be part of those amenities. Where this trailhead is located would be close to what we call the Robbins Lewis Pavilion. Very popular pavilion for birthday parties and events and music venues and things like that. would probably be even more popular if there were restrooms available. So we intend to pursue that. And then finally, there will be some recreational enhancements that we'll make. You probably don't know that we have a 9-hole disc golf course that abuts all of this area, and I'm not a disc golf course person, but apparently there are not that many disc golf courses in the region, and we actually have people who come to Kerrville just to play disc golf, of all things. So we'll make some improvements there as well that we think will be important. And just to give you a view of that proposed perimeter trail and how that will extend across campus, you can see that on your screens there. So I'm joined today by some, I think, community members and business owners and people who actually ran all these numbers. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or perhaps they can if I can't answer it.
Thank you, Dr. McCoy.
Charlie, where is exactly is the Robinson Pavilion on that picture?
So if you see where the trailhead is located in
Yes.
the yellow,
Right.
the white box just
Right
above
above
it
Right.
is the Robbins Lewis Pavilion.
Good place for bathrooms.
That's correct. That's
Is that where
correct.
they used to have the arts and crafts fair?
That's
there?
it. That's exactly the spot.
Heritage,
That's right.
whatever that- yeah. Mhm.
Any other questions?
I've mentored several students from Shiner, none of which had cars.
You're right.
So I wasn't allowed to drive them anywhere, but we always wanted to go for a walk. It was
Right.
the best place to talk, and so I know there are students who would love to have access to that river trail. I mean, those that have cars and those that don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would be a help for those that don't have the ability to jaunt across 27
Yeah.
and then weather could change and you have no, you know what I mean? It's just, it would be a real convenient asset for the students, so.
Thank you. I agree.
Mhm.
The comment that, I think in my opinion, Shriner University is a substantial asset to this city. Kerrville would not be Kerrville without it. And I think every growing city needs to have a university, and certainly a university that has the reputation that Shriner has in many, many areas, whether it's equestrian or shooting or whatever it may be. And I would encourage everybody and anybody who wants to watch this video to go out to the university. And as I said, lunch is a great time to go. But it's amazing to me that so few people in this city have an understanding of what Shriner is, even that you've changed the name of your mascot recently, which
Right.
I don't know if I like that or not, but that's not my opinion. But nobody asked me. It's kind of like rearranging the shelves at HEB. They didn't ask me about that either. But I think Shriner University is a great asset for this city, and it holds itself well in the small university category. So just want to comment.
Anything else?
I just have a question. You look like you have a pretty long trail yourself planned around your campus. Do you know how long it is, or?
Have we?
About 2 miles.
About 2
Okay.
miles.
That's decent size.
Well, you'll be able to cover part of that ground running because you'll be going through the cemetery there.
You won't disturb those neighbors, I don't think.
No, they won't get out probably, hopefully.
I got lots of relatives in there. I walk slowly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we do have someone that would like to speak on this topic from the community. So if you would, Larry Howard?
Thank you, Chairman and EIC. My name's Larry Howard. I live at 650 Oakland Hills Lane here in Kerrville. I've worked with all of these gentlemen on this front row on this project for quite some time. Outside capacity, just trying to further along a vision that was started quite some time ago. And not to belabor, but back in the 50s and 60s, a trail was talked about. Joe Herring told me it was that long ago people started talking about a trail in Kerrville. And they talked about it in the 70s, and they talked about it in the 80s, and they talked about it in the 90s. And it wasn't until 2003 we talked about it sitting on council at the other building and decided it was time to do something and got some preliminary funding of $500,000 that we had set aside. 6 more years went by with nothing being done. In 2009, EIC, sitting in this dais, approved the $6 million for the trail. We had a lot of opposition at the time. There were two different sides to everything. But the difference is that I think Brian Lemillier had a letter to the editor in the paper that summed it up better than I can. I'm paraphrasing for him, but he was one of the ultimate detractors of the trail. Thought it was a waste of money, that it would float away, it'll never get used. And his final paragraph said, "I'm glad there were people in the city of Kerrville who had a vision further than mine that made the decision. I love what you're doing. Please build more." That's my message to you today, is that we have 5 miles of trail, almost 5.5. We're talking about another 1.2 in this, and there's red lines all over that map. Because of that trail, myself as general partner and a group of other investors have been working on the east end of Kerrville. We would not have done that had it not been for the river trail running through that end of town. That's increased the property values by 500% down in that area of the property we have, and we've invested over $3 million into the local community. There are 4 new businesses there employing 40 different employees that weren't on the payroll before this happened. To answer your question about the property owners along the trail that are adjacent to us, we're the corner right there at G Street, so this trail will cross our property. I don't feel it's going to be a benefit to our property because we're already connected to the trail. We have access across G Street Bridge. But as far as the costs go, when I walk the trail and I talk to people and I stop them all the time and say, "What do you think about the trail?" We love it. What's the best thing we can do? Build more. They never ask me about the cost of the trail or how much it costs to do this. The 4 property owners that are between our property and Schreiner University are all business owners. I've spoken to them personally, and they understand the value of having a trail system across the back of their land on the river. I think that they were all very amenable to having that happen and moving forward with it. So I think that will not be an issue. The city can take care of that, but I think that's not going to be a problem. As Brian said, the vision is to build more trails. The more we can build, the better we are. And the money that we spend on these trails belongs to every citizen that lives and pays taxes in the city of Kerrville.
Amen.
So every time they walk on the trail, everybody has access to this asset that belongs to the city. And I don't think we can build enough of it. I support Schreiner University, and they're wanting to access their students to our town and our town to their university. And I support this project 100%. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry. All right.
I just want to make a comment. When we first met Gil, one of the things I heard from you and the other candidates was, what made you attracted to Kerrville? And the river trail and the sports complex were the 2 things that came up. So you actually could be here tonight because of something we invested in. It could be one of the things on your list, but I'd like to think it was on your list. So those are some of the benefits that you don't think about sometimes, not just tourists, but people that we are going to have quality employees now working for our city that came here because of some of our amenities that we just put into our city. So anyway, thanks for noticing the trail. Sure.
Yes, to all the above, but just quickly, the future of economic development, and I think Ms. McGee alluded to that, is economic development has gone from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, to how much money can you put for companies to come in. Then it started transitioning into, do you have shovel-ready sites? Do you have buildings available? And as of the last few years, it started turning the corner to more along the lines of, do you have the available workforce, in addition to that, a certain skill set? Today, and now moving forward, look at what Amazon headquarters has done. It's totally changed the way economic development and recruiting businesses, now moving forward, and that is about places. It's all about building places that is going to attract the employees, and in turn, those employees are the ones that are going to attract companies. It used to be the other way around. Now that has shifted. Mobility of people, and specifically, dare I use the word millennials, who don't have cars or do not want to buy cars, are now using these paths as a way to get to work. Obviously, Amazon headquarters too was, 50,000 people. They split into two communities, which is twice the size of Kerrville. But if we could just grab a fraction of that and utilizing this plan, then we're moving in that direction. So the better EDOs are practicing this today and moving forward.
I agree. Good.
If I could add just one comment, I think when Larry was talking, it's so exciting to see these entrepreneurial nodes developing around the city. On G Street, down around the mansion, where they're gonna do a lot to tie that in with Clay Street and that development. And to have the partnership between private entrepreneurs, the city on the trail, and connect it to Shriner, it's like a win-win-win. I mean, it's really, really good stuff.
Anyone else? Charlie?
I'm Charlie McElvain, President, CEO of the Kerrville Convention Visitors Bureau with 2108 Sidney Baker. Convention Bureau has been very supportive of the trail and this extension and the extension to Kerrville Sports Complex. But this will also add an element too that we've worked hard to bring a younger demographic into the community. Our advertising is geared to a younger demographic, and tying in Shriner University I think makes a lot of sense in that regard. It adds, it'll help add to the element of making Kerrville feel more like a university community. It will give us perhaps even student employment opportunities that they don't have now if they don't have a vehicle. And I think one of the major benefits is also, as Gary mentioned, they could park, the residents can park at a different trailhead and walk into the campus on Sunday morning and have their Sunday brunch and then walk part of that off.
And walk something off.
The last part was very important, Charlie, walking that off.
Anyone else? Sure.
Good evening, I'm William Woods, 1713 Park Street, right at the back gate there at the trail we're talking about. Full disclosure, I'm also a faculty member at Shriner University, but I'm speaking tonight as a member of the neighborhood that has just absolutely embraced this initiative. My friends and I, right there at the corner of Park and Travis, just couldn't think of a better proposal. I've been a resident of Kerrville since summer 1994, and I'm sure y'all hear this enough, but on behalf of the community, thank you. Thank you for that river trail. I'm on that, don't tell my bosses, I'm on that river trail about an hour and a half a day, so my daughter and I enjoy it very much. Thank you. We support this. The neighborhood supports this. Thank you.
Thank you. Walt?
Yeah, just quickly, I just want to confirm from an independent standpoint the desirability of this trail from the student standpoint. As president of the Chamber of Commerce and now head of the EDC, we have had focus group meetings out at the Shriner University talking to the students about what the city can do to enhance their experience here. And one of the main things that we hear as a theme is more access to the town, extension of use of the river trail, et cetera. So I think that from our standpoint, the economic development implication there really takes two branches. One is to support the attractability of students to Shriner at $57,000 per student, and the other is to enhance the student spend rate with our local businesses. I applaud so much the efforts of Shriner University to embrace the community as well. I personally have been to many, many events out there. They're world class. We use the facilities extensively. I can't tell you how many events I've been at the Kalu Ballroom. It's dozens. And this two-way traffic is really what we need to be doing. And we're very much, as a Chamber of Commerce, in support of this trail extension project. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Let's move on to item 5B, which is an amendment to the project funding agreement between the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation and the City of Kerrville, Texas for the design of and improvements to the city's HEB Tennis Center. EA?
Just a brief presentation for you here. So, as you may recall, Well, this is not saved correctly. I will just briefly go through it there. Essentially, as you may recall, we came to, EIC's had this as a budget item for about 4 years now. It was originally allocated in the 2013 EIC budget. Has progressed. It took originally January of 2017 is when a funding agreement was established between the city and EIC to go ahead and move forward with the design engineering effort, a master planning effort involving public input with the community, and then ultimately moving through that engineering contract to an actual construction contract, which we have done over the course of this last year. Held several public input sessions, found a phased project that would fit into that $1.5 million scale, or so we thought at the time, and moved forward with that. The component of the design engineering contract was about $161,000. We went ahead and moved forward with the resurfacing effort to go ahead and speed up the project, hoping to move through construction as quickly as we could over the winter and spring time frame, and maybe be able to salvage a little bit of the summer and fall seasons. So we went ahead and moved forward with that. It was about $57,000, and then we went ahead and bid the project a couple months ago. And so we got quality bids in. The apparent low bid is for right at $1.45 million. So when you total that up, we're just a little bit over our original budget of 1.5, and that's without any contingency built into there. And so we wanted to respectfully come back to this group, given what we're seeing in rising construction costs, and knowing that we did get competitive bids, and come back and ask and see if EIC might be willing to up that funding agreement amount in the amount of $250,000, moving it from 1.5 million to 1.75 million, so we can go ahead and knock out phase one of this project. I think I've got some pictures here now. Okay, so this is the master plan rendering, and again, this is the full-blown master plan at 4.1 million. We are not completing all of this here. As you can see, that's a large, unless EIC wants to, that's a large covered pavilion area. This is phase one, which we broke out, and it's really what I would classify as kind of a nuts and bolts phase. It's going through doing resurfacing, enhancing the parking, resurfacing the parking, drainage improvements. We've got some pretty significant drainage problems right now. Bathroom situation is subpar, so it's really a nuts and bolts phase, and certainly, but lays the good groundwork for us to hopefully, maybe with some philanthropic efforts, to knock out some of those other more enhanced master plan features. But we feel like with just a little bit of additional, we can go ahead and knock out this phase one element for the community. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. And we've also got Ashley Boyle here to answer any questions from a Parks and Recreation perspective.
I have a couple of questions. Do you know what revenues the tennis center generates to the city every year? Any idea?
Right. So the way that we have that structured with the pro is that the pro essentially gets revenue from the elements of the actual teaching lessons that are there, and in return they basically run the facility. So we keep the lights on, we provide the toilet paper and the water, and beyond that, all of the revenues essentially from tournaments and other things are through revenues of folks staying at our hotels and motels, folks staying and spending sales tax dollars. So it's a secondary revenue element that it's very difficult to track how that comes in.
Let me ask you, how long has it been since this tennis center? Because I know my dad came up here late 60s and played tennis and stayed at the Hillcrest Inn or something across the street there.
Yes, sir.
So I'm familiar with it. When was the last time that there was any maintenance, repair, renovation, or how did it get into this situation? The reason I ask is, do we have any, when we get this up to speed, do we have plans on setting aside money, every year to keep it so we don't have this come up every 50 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So there absolutely are, elements of maintenance that occur every year. And in fact, I think the last resurfacing effort was around 2000, 2016, yeah. So it has been periodic. I would classify this more as just deferred maintenance, though. I mean, this is an enhancement to the facility,
Right.
Particularly with the drainage elements. I mean, it was a different level of design that occurred, 40 years ago at that facility, as well as the development that has occurred in that area and changed some of the drainage dynamics over the years. So I would classify this as a pretty major overhaul, not even a renovation, but an overhaul to the facility.
Thank you.
But we will continue to budget for maintenance items as we look to enhance this facility as well.
But these courts will be available for when Tybee wants to have a tennis tournament or bring in things, or any tournaments. open
Absolutely,
tournaments.
yes, sir. And we
Yeah.
actually have an agreement with Kerrville ISD. They do utilize this facility pretty extensively, quite a bit right now with the middle school. With that facility moving in the near future, we're going to engage with conversations in how the facility is going to continue to be utilized by Kerrville ISD. But we absolutely recognize that that's the case. And in fact, I believe Shriner, in some of our larger tournaments that are hosted, we have kind of a three-way agreement between the schools to make that work, just to have enough surface around the community.
Thanks, thank you.
Essentially, EA, you're saying this additional $250,000 is because the bid estimates have come in a little higher and the cost of construction is higher.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's not really any new elements added to it. This is just rising costs and
Yes, sir. It's just rising.
guesstimates not being exactly on target.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's
Pretty
all
close.
I wanted to
We
know.
just
Yeah.
weren't right on the money, and we're seeing rising construction costs, unfortunately. Since that original 2013 timeframe, we've probably seen between 20 and 25% in construction costs, just for most of our construction projects. So I'm surprised that we were as close as we were, to be honest with you.
So what's
Over 3
the,
years, yeah.
what's the proper way to amend it? Do we have to go through public hearing and go through all the previous steps?
Make
The proper way, if you all make a motion to do this, just increase the cost or y'all's contribution, I'll come up with an amendment, which I should have done and gotten that to you, but it would have been very simple. It would have been just a change to that paragraph and added the additional funds and have the party sign and get down the road. So, but if you all want to if you're ready to make a motion to that extent, then we'll get it done.
And then there are no more meetings about it.
Yes, sir. And we do have.
I mean, it's a year and a half to get
Not
one
unless you
done,
want
so
them.
I'm trying to
Don't
speed the
stay away.
process.
Yes, sir.
up.
So we do have essentially a 60-day expiration
Correct.
on those bid elements that came in. So that came in about November 13th. So that's why we wanted to go ahead and
Do it
kind of
now.
put this on the agenda pretty quickly for you, so we could get some direction and know where we were headed with it.
All right.
Well, I would
Any
move.
discussion?
Well, okay, discuss, whatever. I'm
I
ready to
think
make
it's
a motion.
necessary. We've gone so far in the planning process, and, I mean, I got involved originally when the repair
Sure.
work on the EIC board, and at the time we had 14 courts, we were using like 11. And anyway, so I've been waiting for, a good plan to come together for the tennis courts, so I think this is good without spending $4.1 million.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it can serve the city well, so.
Yeah. Well, I would make a motion that we amend our contract to increase it by a maximum of $250,000. So in case you guys get you wheedle off some, that'd be good too. You're good at that, EA, so I would make that motion.
They don't have to spend it all, do they?
No, that's what
Okay.
I'm saying.
Yeah, and whatever that balance is, we will refund back to the EIC,
Amen.
obviously. Yes, sir.
That'll be in there, trust me.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. I do believe we will move on to item number 6, which is executive session. And I think that under section 551087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, we could have some discussion if you guys so move.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session under section 551.087 to
Have a
deliberate.
motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. We are now in executive session. Okay, I will bring us back into regular session. The Economic Improvement Corporation did not make any decisions while they were in the executive session. So I want to bring that forward to you, as we can't do that according to the law.
But we have to say that.
So, but we do have to let you know, nothing was accomplished in there that was a legal nature. How about that? I don't have better to say.
Sounds good.
All right.
That covers it all.
So I'm looking for some direction or a motion to give some direction, so.
Well, I know we directed our city attorney to draft an amendment, well, is that what it'd be called? It wouldn't be an amendment, but it's an agreement. They would have certain points that we have gone over in executive session. Once those are done, we want to review that and perhaps invite Dr. McCormick to come back with Mr. Muse as well to confirm they're in agreement with those points. And then we're prepared to, and they're not moving, earth and sea points, so we think we can move forward with that. And that would be in our next meeting, December 17th.
So you're asking for us to instruct staff to
Yes, that's what I'm
create a
doing.
funding agreement for the
Please.
request that was made for the River Trail extension by
That's it.
Shriner University.
That's it. Thank you so much.
And hold a public hearing.
And hold a public hearing at our next meeting.
Correct.
Got it. Good, I'm
Takes
glad
a
you got
village.
all that out. We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that instruction, raise your right hand. And any opposed? And I think Mr. McKinney will probably, again.
Recuse or whatever.
Abstain.
Abstain. All right, that,
Thank you all for
motion
being here.
passed unanimously, and thank you for being here and staying around. Any other, items for future agendas any of you want to put on an agenda? Any announcements?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. We are adjourned.
Good job, President.